Welcome to the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to help you heal after a toxic or narcissistic relationship. This podcast teaches you to use your subconscious mind to go from feeling stuck to set free. In here, you will learn how to use the power of your own mind to free yourself from emotional pain, move forward with confidence, and experience the inner peace you deserve in your healing journey after emotional abuse. I'm your host and subconscious reprogramming coach, Allison Dagny. So let's get started. Thank you for joining the podcast today. I am here with a very special guest who I would love to introduce you to. We're going to have a really interesting conversation today about something that not a lot of people know about. And I'm hoping that it's something that you can take with you along your healing journey to help you, because it's something that I recently learned about and I find it ultra fascinating, and I think you will too. So without further ado, go ahead and introduce yourself to our guests.
Hi, or aloha, everybody. My name is Mei. I am half German, half Chinese Ecuadorian, multi or mixed race by DNA and biography. I've grown up in different countries until I was 18, and then I moved to Germany to stay there for 20 years. Until then, again, I decided to step into my ancestral power of nomadism, to put it in that way. And also to find my own spiritual path along the way. And so today I am an energy coach, and I support especially empaths and highly sensitive people to learn not only to deal with their gift as an empath, but actually see the beauty of having that gift. To really stand in their power and find that creative power within them.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you so much for being here. You have an amazing background, and I'm really excited to talk about all the things that you know about that you can share with everyone. And the one thing that I wanted to start with is the empath thing. So we'll talk about that first. But before we get into that, I wanted to know a little bit about your story. So how did you end up on this journey? How did you get from where you used to be to where you are now to now being a coach and helping other empaths and helping people in that regard? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm going to try to keep it short, but
that's okay.
So for me, that's why I mentioned my mixed race, background, and especially, also through my biography, growing up in different countries. I love it, and I would never change it for anything, but it had the effect that I had, this search for who am I in all of this. Because when I was, in Germany, I didn't feel that German. And when I was in Ecuador, I didn't feel that Ecuadorian. And not even, the Chinese side, I knew we have this Chinese culture within us, but we don't have the language. So I wasn't, that your grandparents are Chinese, but, I didn't know how much they actually, gave us of that. And and the same thing happened with me job-wise, that once I got here to Germany, you start your career somehow. And for me, it was, starting one career, after 2 years, changing to another career. So I was really drifting through the whole thing, trying to find what it is that I like doing, until I got to, I think it was my 10-year anniversary in Germany, when I said, this can't be it. I can't be just changing jobs every 2 years. I wanted to do something and find out what it is. And instead of changing jobs again, because I was again at a point in my job, I had started working in a corporate company. And for me, it was, okay, I'm bored again. What do I do now? And so instead of jumping into the next thing, I decided to find a spiritual solution to this, find a way to maybe find my purpose through there. And that's how I started with a shamanic apprentice. So I learned to be a shaman, which is called core shamanism. It's a foundation for shamanic studies that actually started with Michael Harner from the US, who as an ethnologist, he traveled the whole world, and he looked at all the shamans all over the world and found their core techniques that all of them had, the same everywhere on the planet. And so that was my foundation at the beginning. But one of the things that I loved about my very first teacher as well is that he said to me, your path is a spiritual one, but don't let anybody tell you which one it is. So he already ingrained that inside of me, that this openness for everything. Because if you look at spirituality today, it's very mixed. You have people doing Reiki and yoga and shamanism and angel work and energy, like it's pretty mixed all over. But back then, because we're talking about like 13, 14, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. So he already ingrained that into me to be open for everything. Basically to see it every direction or as methods, as tools that you can use that are all bringing you to the one, to the one goal, which I think for all of us is sort of, coming back to harmony and love and, find that peace inside of you. And so that was my base. And while I was, learning with him, we found out that I'm an empath, and same thing here. Back then, internet wasn't, as it is today. So he didn't have any information other than just the description that, okay, you are an empath. You have to deal with energies, and you're going to have to learn to deal with it. But I'm not the right teacher for you. And the other teacher that I had at the same time, because he started learning with me from other teachers as well. So, he was very open himself for everything. And so the other teacher also said the same thing. So I had to find out by myself. And so for me, it was, okay, so now I have an understanding of who I am, that I'm an empath and I have to deal with the energies and I'm feeling them very strongly. How am I going to deal with this? At the same time, I started to burn out at work. So, because I still had my corporate job. And so for me, I started having, like the typical symptoms of depression, basically, right? So for me, I was trying to, find ways not to have to, meet up with friends on the weekends, just, finding space for myself, not wanting to be there, getting really overwhelmed fast when I was in meetings with other people. Didn't matter if it was the job or if it was private. Like even friends inviting me to their birthdays were really sort of a challenge at that time. And so I understood what I was, but I couldn't find anything about it. So for me, it was like, okay, now I understand, but I still have to find a solution, because I don't believe that God or the universe created empaths, and back then me in the way that I am, not to know happiness, because that wasn't making me happy. It was, so, I kept learning. I have the first Reiki degree. I kept learning anything about energies, healing magnetism. I started doing shiatsu because I wanted to learn a little bit more, from the Chinese medicine side. I wanted to learn that. So I dug into that. And then at some point, a friend of mine, and at some point I decided that, the spiritual solution right now is not giving me the solution yet. And I felt that it was more of a cognitive problem. So it had to do with my beliefs, with what I was, thinking. And so I decided to actually do, the normal classical therapy. And that therapist back then explained to me that what I had was not burnout. It was actually, here in Germany, they have the term bore out, which is because it's not that you're bored, but it is that you don't have meaning in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so that gave me, more power to start searching for that. And at the same time, also a question came up in the therapy session that was, who am I?
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that I felt, and I want to give this to your listeners, and because I felt it was so beautiful, because she said, I remember her, and I still remember how she was sitting in front of me saying, you know what I find weird? You have this beautiful treasure of cultures within you, but you keep fighting all of them.
Mm.
instead of actually seeing them as a treasure that they are, because at any moment in time, you can decide, are you going to react to a situation or act in a situation from your Chinese side, from your German side, from your Ecuadorian side? Like, this is a treasure that you have. And that was very beautiful. So that helped me, actually, instead of seeing myself as being, torn in between everything, because I know I'm talking about countries, but in the end, or about cultures, but in the end, what is culture? Culture is our values.
Right.
So instead of being torn between all the values that I had, and I'm saying that because I know other people don't have, all the countries like I do, but you have values because you have a father and a mother, and both of them had different values that you had to combine as a child. And so that's the struggle that a lot of people have, fighting that you have values that fight against each other. So really embracing them instead of fighting them,
Yeah.
and in seeing them as a gift.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first, and then the second big one was, finding out, who am I? Like, who am I?
Yeah.
And so back then, in that time, a friend of mine gifted me my very first book about the Huna philosophy from the Hawaiians.
Mhm.
And I remember reading the very first pages of that book, and I was like, that's me. Why am I not living it? But this is me. This is I know this, like, from my core, this is who I'm supposed to be. So I embarked on this journey on learning more about the Huna philosophy, also from different books. And then from that, I think it's natural that you move into Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian, which is very wonderful. And maybe some of your listeners have already heard of Ho'oponopono. Most of the times, people have heard of the four sentences, the four affirmations. Hold on, let me, because I keep having them in German, but in English is, please forgive me, thank you, I love you,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. And so it's, but for me, it was never only those four sentences.
Yeah.
For me, there's a whole philosophy that stands behind it to understand. And so for me, I embarked in that journey. I started learning Lomi Lomi massage from a German teacher here in Germany, but then wanted to upgrade and learn on Hawaii, of course. And of course, I went to Hawaii to learn there. And that was, I mean, for me, that was for me, it was life changing. And as I always say, because I really honor their culture a lot, but also it's not just, it's what I learned from them. Again, to come back to what my teacher gave me, my shamanic teacher taught me in the beginning. It, for me, it was a language that my soul understood.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Right. So for me, that's the language that I could use to understand the laws of vibration, the laws of energies,
Yeah.
on a way deeper level. But I'm well aware of that was the language that was good for me.
Mhm.
And now, again, to my, mixed background, because of that, I am able to translate that
Yeah.
for others, to understand. And I have to admit that those were not just those. I mean, there have been, other influences as well, but they were the biggest influence on me.
Yeah.
And with that, I learned to empower myself, come out of that, oh my God, it's so bad to be an empath. It's so horrible. You have to suffer all the energies. And now I'm like, oh, bring them on, because I
Yeah.
know I can deal with them. I can do with them. I can transform them. I can help do that. And so I learned to be the one that holds the space for others to transform. So
Okay.
this is where, that's
Yeah.
why, of course, I was called to become a coach and hold the energy for other people. And now I'm here to teach all the empaths that want to teach them how to have, that ease in their life, that freedom with their gift, because it's so beautiful. And the more we embrace it, like I said earlier, with, the treasure, instead of
Mhm.
fighting it,
Mhm.
really embracing it and seeing the beauty that we have in there.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because, and thank you for that description. It was beautiful. I love so many things about what you said. And one thing in specific that I was thinking about when you were talking is this idea of not having like a real clear identity. And the reason why is because, and a lot of people who are listening probably are very empathic or empaths themselves or identify in that way. Um, if they have been emotionally abused, and this podcast is the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, if they have been like that and they have been under the control of someone for a really long time, if they've been manipulated, if they've been gaslit, if they've been told that they don't remember or they don't know, or this person knows better than they do, right? Those kinds of things happen. Then when you leave that abusive situation, a lot of times your identity is pretty much non-existent. You don't know who you are. You don't know what you like. You don't know where you want to go or what you want to eat for dinner or what your favorite color is. Do you like roses? Do you not like roses, right? There's so many things that shake the foundation, and then you're left to sort of figure out, like, who am I? So that aligns a lot with what you were saying. And even in the regard that you were saying, well, I know it's like geography and background, and maybe not a lot of people come from mixed race, things like that. However, there is this deep sort of there are identities, I guess, inside of everyone that are mixed, right? There are values, there are these treasures, like you said, which I absolutely love what that therapist had told you, because the confusion starts, right? As soon as you're gone, you're like, wait a minute, what is it that I actually like? What is it that I actually want? So first and foremost, how do you think, as a coach, right? A coach who works with empaths, people who, and maybe we need to define that first, maybe you should tell us, I know what an empath is, but I want to hear it from you. Tell us, what, if someone thought maybe they were an empath, how would they know? Like, what does that look like for someone? And then when you're out of an emotionally abusive relationship and you're struggling with your identity, what are some things that we can do to start rebuilding that identity for ourselves? So let's start with empath first.
Okay, so I think one of the biggest one that I've noticed from my clients and everything is like, you are somewhere and out of the blue, a stranger starts talking to you and starts spilling their whole life.
Mm.
And you're like completely, you're like, okay, this is like too, maybe too much information.
Right.
But it's because the people subconsciously or unconsciously feel that, oh, this is someone I can talk to.
Mm.
Another thing is, empaths a lot of the times feel like the garbage can for everybody else, because not only strangers do that, our friends do that, our families do that. They come and they spill everything on us, and afterwards they're feeling like, oh yes, oh, this was so refreshing, thank you for this talk, and they're happy, and maybe they were crying before, but now they feel fine, and now they're leaving, and you're sitting there going like, oh my god, I'm so drained, because like, because everything just exhausted. That's a typical thing. You feel, like another thing is, when you go into the typical thing, you're invited to a friend's party, you're the one that finds the one person that has the lowest vibration in that party, and you're the one trying to help that person to come up so that the energy comes up in the room. And so empaths are huge people pleasers, because I mean, it's sort of like a I always say it's something that we create to protect ourselves, because we don't want to, we feel someone's not in a good mood, and we don't want to bear that negative energy. So what are we going to do? We're going to try to make everything good for that person so that we don't have. So it's sort of a little bit selfish if we look at it. It feels like we're doing something good because we're helping the other person, but in the end, it's very selfish, because we're trying to, just for us to feel better.
Right.
But the thing is that most of the times we don't realize. So we get exhausted from helping the whole world. This is also actually one of the things that my therapist back then told me. Who made you responsible of everybody else's feelings? Right? That's like, yeah, but that's a typical thing of empaths. We feel responsible for everybody else's feeling. If someone is sad, if someone is not feeling good, if someone had an accident, we might not feel responsible for the accident, but we feel like, okay, we're the one that needs to, help them. We're the one that needs to, save the world basically for them. And that creates a lot of coexistence with other people. So we always feel codependency with others, and so that's why it's so important for us to learn to stand in our power. But to to put it like those are the points. A lot of empaths are super creative. We tend to be super creative and in helpful jobs. So trying to coaches, healers, and all normal doctor, classical doctors, you know um all the kinds of healing jobs that we have. But we also love being in nature. We're very good with animals. There's empaths that have sort of like a natural communication with animals as well. And I think that would be like the top
Okay.
points how to see. And one more is that you go into meetings and you come out exhausted. That I think that's also one that you actually are exhausted of social engagement. And I feel that, oh, sorry.
Okay, a little background. Good.
Um, so we're very exhausted with social engagement, and that sort of yeah, it just we try to avoid it. If we like, the older we get, we try to avoid it.
Mhm.
And this is one thing that I'd like to share everybody. Of course, as an empath, I have created a space where I can recharge my energies. But I am also an empath that loves to socialize every now and then. So
Yeah.
I always give as an example, I'm a huge fan of Oktoberfest. Not because of the alcohol. I have to say that I don't drink that much alcohol on Oktoberfest. But I like the social gathering of that festival because it's like
Community.
people from
Yeah.
all over the world come together and celebrate in a very, very peaceful way, I find. And so I go there. And
Yeah.
a lot of empaths go like, "What? No, I don't want to." It's too many people, and I know. But the thing is, we can learn to, stand in our own power in that way. Sorry, sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know why they're.
I can edit it.
Hold on, let me just turn it off because I don't want her to. I'll call them back afterwards. There you go. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
So the thing is that really to understand that as an empath, we don't have to, because I think a lot of, and this was a point that I had back then as well, was that I was feeling like, am I becoming antisocial because I'm not, going out there anymore, not wanting to meet people anymore. So I think that's a good point. And another one, another big one, sorry, is also that we sometimes don't understand our own feelings and thoughts. So because we're so overwhelmed with everybody else's energies, that, for example, we feel like, I don't know, to put it with the political parties, I might be what are the name again of the political parties in the
Republican,
and
Democrat,
Democrat.
or
Yeah,
independent. Yeah.
like what, like maybe for the past months I've been completely Democrat, and then I talk to someone, and then suddenly I'm like, no, no, the Republicans are the ones that are the true force. And and I'm not saying which one is better or worse. Everybody has to decide that for themselves, but having those like abrupt switches.
Yeah.
And this is something that I experienced with job wise. I had fun at this job for 2 years, and now no, I feel like there's something else that I have to do. So I would do that other thing. And same thing, like when you're watching webinars or whatever online, you're listening to someone and you're going like, oh my God, because you're all in their energy. Okay, this is it. This is the one thing. And then 2 days later, you're like, oh no, this is not, this is not the thing.
Yeah.
Maybe something else is the thing, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that this is also something very typical for empaths, that it, or not to put it in this way, for empaths that haven't learned to be conscious with themselves yet.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, to
Okay,
put it that
good.
way.
Well, tell us then, because I want to get into the Hawaiian healing and talk about that too. Um, but for people who are really struggling, like who feel like that they're empaths, they identify with the things that you're saying, and are struggling with their own identity, where would you say is a good starting point to start rebuilding that?
I always say start with putting the flashlight on you. Because again, when we're talking of empaths or any person in the world, because yeah, that's another thing, but for any person in the world, we tend to be, oh my God, with this person, oh my God, with that person, and what's happening over here, and then you have family, what's happening with your kids, what's happening with your parents, with your family in general and friends in general. So we're always everywhere, and we don't take the time to actually, and this is like the easiest form, to just check in with yourself, to just maybe the body scan is something that I tell everybody to, just to get started, because the physical part, just feel into your body. How's your body feeling right now? Like, how are the shoulders? How's your chest? How's your tummy? How's your legs? And then go back into your heart. How am I feeling right now? And you don't have to judge it. You don't have to do anything on. You don't have to act on it or anything. It's just acknowledging.
Just being
Just
aware.
just being aware, exactly. Just being okay. So like, okay, and just practice that. The more you practice it, the more you start doing that throughout the whole day. Um, and this is actually one of the things that happened to me with Oktoberfest. Just to bring that example back, because here in the last I think 20 years, it's become very normal that you dress up in the traditional Bavarian clothes to go there. And I was feeling that Oktoberfest wasn't as fun as it was for me anymore. And I was going like, so what's happening? So I turned the flashlight on me. Like, what is it? What's happening here? How am I feeling about this? And I found out that my problem was that I was pressuring myself to dress up the way everybody expects me to dress up. But it didn't, like, there's no rule for it. You're allowed to go with whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I released that for myself, I was able to, now I just dress up if I want to, but if I don't feel like it, I won't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bigger joy. And in this, but the example that I'm putting is because this pressure came from, the friends that I was with. Um, and in the end, my friends, I mean, of course, they want everything to be, you're supposed to, look pretty when you go there, but they're not, they don't love me less because I don't want to wear it that way. But that was something that I needed to transform within myself.
Right.
And it only happened because I turned the flashlight towards me, towards how am I feeling.
I love
Sort of,
that. That's great. Yeah. And I think that's
to
great advice because so many times, I mean, you could have easily went down the road of it's not the same as it used to be, and they're not doing things the way, and they're changing tradition. And, you could have been outer focused. And I talk about that all the time is like, we can't control what happens outside of us. We can't control the world or other people or how other people are showing up or what they say or what they do. So it's really important that, we live in this body. This is our body, and if you do that body scan, like you said, and you're trying to figure out like, oh, I'm feeling this like sort of sick to my stomach, or I'm, feeling nervous, or, my throat, or whatever that might be, right? Not that you're sick. You just may have to pay attention to what sensations are happening in your body. Then you're pulling it back, they're pulling the focus back on you. And like you said, start to inquire, like, why am I feeling like this? Or what is it that's actually right? But instead have to resist putting it outside of you, have to resist like the thoughts like, but if it wasn't like this, then I wouldn't feel like that. And if this wasn't happening, then I wouldn't feel like that. Right. It was for you, it was like, okay, I am holding myself to this pressure, right? Do I really need to do that? Like, no, I don't need to do that. So I love that's really, really, really helpful because so many times I think it ends up automatically being outer focused for some people, especially if you haven't learned or you don't know to bring the flashlight back to yourself. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Um, I'm really wanting to segue over to the Hawaiian healing because I know you know a lot about that. I recently read the book that you recommended, The Zero Limits by Joe Vitale, and it was extremely, extremely eye-opening, and I love it. And that's why I wanted you on here too, because I think you're going to be able to be the person to describe it, and we can talk a little bit about it. So how did you, because you don't have Hawaiian descent, right? You have German, you have Chinese, you have, what's the other one?
Ecuadorian.
Ecuadorian. So how did you get into the Hawaii? I know that one thing you said, the Huna philosophy or what, Huna philosophy. So how did you stumble upon Ho'oponopono, and can you explain that to us and what it is?
So for start, well, I just stumbled on it because a friend of mine actually just gave me the book. But
Mhm.
I, looking at it from, from a bigger view, for me, there was a reason that that friend got, had to buy that book for me. So I feel that I believe that my soul was searching for that language that, that my brain here and my body here would understand. And the funny thing is that you're saying, because I don't have any Hawaiian descent, but when I am in Hawaii,
Mhm.
because of my mix, the Hawaiians don't see me as, they feel like I am Hawaiian.
I bet
And I'm
they
talking
do.
about Hawaiian people
Yeah.
and tourists, because I've had people come up to me and go like, "Oh, can you tell me the way to this and this?" And I'm like, "Uh-huh. No, I'm a tourist myself. I'm sorry." And they don't believe me. They feel like I'm lying to them.
Mhm.
I'm like, "I'm not lying to you. I am from a different country." But I do feel like, it feels like I'm home. I'm home when I'm
Yeah.
in Hawaii. Just to, somehow, again, my body actually, manifested into something that feels home there too.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I think the best way to explain Ho'oponopono is, it's a philosophy of self-empowerment, because I would say it this way, it demands of you to take responsibility for everything.
Yes.
And this is because you were just saying, when other people say something, we can't control them,
Mhm.
but we can control ourselves. But I want to say this with a huge, how do you call this, like quote
Yeah.
unquote
Mhm.
points, because I don't want it to come up as gaslighting. I'm not gaslighting. Like, if you're feeling trauma, if you're feeling pain, please allow this to have space.
Right.
This needs to have its own healing time. But once you're out of that, be having this empowerment. And also another thing is, we're not looking to blame anyone. So if you're feeling like, because you're self-empowering yourself, you're taking responsibility for what happened, 10 years, 15 years, or maybe in your childhood, when you're as a child, you can't, like, you have to do whatever is happening to you. We're not looking to blame for anything, because I also believe everything has its reason by itself, but you learn to come out of whatever it is, and you're here. And now you can use this to, take that responsibility and say, okay, from today on, I'm changing it.
Yeah.
Right. So this is something that I find very important. And this is what this philosophy taught me, to really, be very self-empowered with everything that was happening. Like, even if, and this is the part where that's why I wanted to say, we're not looking to blame anyone. When I feel, for example, I'll have colleagues at work, to take that as an example, and I don't feel like they are grateful for what I'm doing.
Mhm.
Right, so they're not, like, I feel like they don't even see. They come and ask me for things, and I help them, and then in the next moment, I'm not seen.
Right.
Right, so when there's big meetings, no one says, "Thank you, May, that you're doing this."
Mhm.
So I'm not blaming them
Mhm.
for being that way. I
Mhm.
ask myself, what inside of me might be projecting this energy, you know so I ask myself, how am I, being grateful for myself? What if I start being grateful with myself?
Yeah.
And I change that. And this has happened, I mean, in different kinds of ways to me. And I start changing that, and I start giving myself, more worth, or more, gratitude for what I'm doing. And suddenly a colleague comes up with flowers and says, "Thank you for your work. Thank you so much for helping me."
Yeah.
Right. And there, I could give you more of these kinds of descriptions, but so many situations. A big one for me, for example, to put it in family perspective, I used to be daddy's girl, like, because I'm the firstborn, and my dad and I, we have had a very good relationship until the moment I started my spiritual path, because that was something that he could, like, I don't believe those.
Right.
They just want to get your money. Those were his beliefs. So I started my journey, and so I felt like this was drifting us apart. And I tried, of course, I tried to find moments to talk to him about this more openly. And but of course, he has his things.
Right.
So I started working on myself, and I remember back then that I was looking. So okay, so why is he react? The way I looked at how he was reacting to whenever I wanted to talk to him about those kind of things, and I asked myself, when am I doing the same thing? Because I
Mm-hmm.
might not even, it might not be the spiritual side, it might be somewhere else, but it is sort of like a similar
Mm-hmm.
sort of way of dealing with something.
Yeah.
So I saw that we both didn't like things that we didn't know. Like if it was something we didn't know, we immediately, first of all, pulled up a wall. So I started healing that within myself. And once I did that, I didn't even talk to, like, to the day, he doesn't know I did that.
Right.
But 3 months after I started working on myself with that topic, 3 months after that, I opened my practice in Munich, and he was there. He was standing in our circle, blessing the room in his very spiritual, a ritual that we were doing, and he was there blessing it with us.
Wow.
And I love sharing this story because it shows you how by changing it inside of you, it changes somewhere else. And I want to give you another example of when someone else didn't change. Um, just so that your listeners see the whole, spectrum of ways how it works. Um, I come from, in my family, it's always been the Latin American side has always, it's my mom is the oldest of six girls, and so for them, looking good, was always a very big topic. So it's always, how are you dressing? How is your hair? How is everything? So the looks. And that has always been a struggle for me because I prefer comfy stuff, and I don't, like, I don't like high heels, and I tried to push myself into those things. And so one of the things that happened to me was I had my hair very long, like really almost, like whole back long hair, and I felt I wanted to cut them off. I felt like I needed a change. I want to cut my hair off. um so what happened at that time, I had sort of a fling with someone, and I told him that I'm thinking about cutting my hair, and he goes like, if you cut your hair, we're through. That was like the first sentence. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, okay. So I'm still, okay, so I won't cut it. And then and then a friend of mine, a very dear one of my oldest friends ever, he loves me the way I am, I know that, but we were hanging out, looking at some pictures of, I don't know what party he was at, and then he sees the girls, and then there was a picture with, all friends, and then out of the blue tells me, oh, women with long hair just look way better. And I know that he's dated all kinds of women, so it's not like, but at that moment, that sentence really hit me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking, putting the flashlight on me. So what are those two sentences telling me? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm afraid I have my own, beliefs that, if I cut my hair, I'm not going to be feminine. I'm not going to be seen as, sexy. I'm not going to be, seen as a woman at all. If I cut my hair, I'm just not going to be worth it anymore because, that side is going to be gone. So again, I worked on it. And after a couple of months, because back then it took me longer to work on those things. Now I'm faster, but way back then. So I worked on it. I went to my hairdresser. I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm aligned. It feels good. I'm cutting my hair. And I remember because it was so funny because my hairdresser, he needed 20 minutes to finally cut the hair because I wanted it this short. It's not even, it still counts as long hair, but it was, a huge, I think over a foot of hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took him like 20 minutes running around me telling the clerk girl, she wants me to cut this hair, And for me, it was just funny. I was just like, yeah, no, but I am completely, just do it, just cut it off. And afterwards, I had so amazing feedback because I felt so good doing this for myself because it was something I was doing because I wanted and I liked it. And the funny thing is, one person of all, just one person came up and said, well, I liked them better when they were longer.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, weeks before or months before, that sentence would have crushed me,
Yeah.
because, oh my God, no, I'm not, like, oh, what did I do? Now I have to wait until they grow out again. My reaction at that moment was, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You don't have to,
Right.
like, and I didn't realize until a couple of hours later, I'm like, oh, he just said that.
Mhm.
Oh, and it didn't bother me. Oh, that's nice. I like it. See, that's why Ho'oponopono works.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that because and that goes back to your identity too. It's like I know who I am. I know that this doesn't mean, right, what other people say it means, right? It doesn't mean that I'm not a woman or I'm not going to be seen or I'm not going to be beautiful or anything just because I don't have long hair. I mean, there's a lot of very beautiful women with very short hair out there and are highly desired or highly happy, or they just are completely content because that's what they want and that's what they like, and that energy comes out of you. Other people see it, and I love that you're just like totally unaffected by that, because that's a lot of the work that I do, is trying to help people get to that place of indifference. Like, this is who I am. This is my identity. Take it or leave it, right? Those people who love you and care about you. And, we're talking about hair, but this goes way deeper. There's a lot of things specifically about how we behave and how we think and what we say and what we do and all the choices that we make that people won't approve of, right? But those people they're not living inside of you. Those people aren't really the ones that matter. It's, goes back to that whole empath thing you said about people pleasing and wondering if other people are gonna, what if you had lived your whole life with that long hair and you hated it because you thought that it was better because other people would be happy if I just had long hair, right? They're not the ones waking up in the morning to see your hair. They're not the ones that have to throw it in a ponytail, brush it, wash it, comb it, you style it, hair dry it, get trims every 6 weeks, like that. It really makes a huge difference when you put that flashlight back on yourself. It really, really does. So I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. It's such a fun story.
It is.
So let's talk a little bit about this. The whole Ho'oponopono, right? That it's a hard word to say, but Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian healing, right? Because what you talked about before, I want to come back to, is the self uh responsibility versus blame. And I want to make sure this is very, very clear, because there's a lot about forgiveness to heal when it comes to this sort of thing, and forgiving yourself and forgiving others. And it's a sensitive topic because a lot of people really resist forgiveness because of what they make it mean, right? If you make forgiveness mean, if I forgive that person, that means he got away with it. If I forgive that person, that means I was okay with what happened, right? And that's really the important part to note here, is that forgiveness only means what you make it mean, right? We may believe forgiveness means a certain thing because of how we were taught, what people have told us it means, but we can really inspect that for ourselves. We can make it mean anything we want it to mean. We can make it mean that it's our key to unlock that prison for us so that we can move forward and feel the things like peace and joy and love and contentment and indifference, and not worrying about what other people think. So responsibility versus blame, I think, and you can correct me or tell me your opinion, responsibility is responsibility for how I'm feeling, right? Instead of saying other people, if they would just behave this way, or if other people would just do that, if other people would just not do this or that, I would be happy, right? Because the reality is, people are going to be people. People are going to do things that we don't agree with. People are going to say things that hurt us. But it's up to us to take that responsibility. Are we going to let that hurt us? Are we going to put that flashlight back on us and say, hold on, I don't like the way this feels. So there's something I need to look at. There's something I need to inspect inside myself. Because if not, then they just have all the power and they're running away with it. So, obviously, if someone did something to you that hurt you, we're not taking that away. We're not saying they aren't to blame for, abuse or something like that, right? That was their actions, right? That's what they did. That's the reality of the situation. But how we are processing it, how we are allowing it to affect us for now and forever, that's our responsibility. So what do you think?
Oh, I'm completely there with you. I would just like to add that, especially when it comes to having someone that did something to you, It doesn't matter if physically or emotionally, but um, the thing is that as long as you don't let it go, and by letting go is, either forgiveness, or there are so many ways of, doing that. Um, but the thing is that as long as you keep it, and I'm talking about even if you keep it subconsciously hidden somewhere where you don't want to look at it, it's
Yeah.
still there.
Yeah.
And it's still like a huge backpack inside of your system. And I'm looking at it energetically. That means it's in your energy field, you know? And because of it, it's also attracting maybe even other kinds of, bad vibes that you don't even want.
Yeah.
So by releasing it, transforming it, forgiving it, or, that's why I'm saying maybe, if some people have a problem with forgiveness, then think of it as letting go, as releasing it. The moment you do that, you don't have it. And again, like you said, that's why I want to confirm that. It doesn't mean that it's not valid what that person, we're how does it, unvalidating
Invalidating. Yeah.
invalidating the person's what they did. But the thing is, you're leaving it with them because they have to live with what they did. That's
Right.
another thing. That's an energy field of a different kind, and they have to live with that energy.
Right.
And the question is, are you willing to keep on, feeding yours and theirs? Or are you ready to, create for you a healthy energy field where you can thrive? And also, again, think about, as an empath, think of actually attracting energies to your field
Mhm.
that are better, that you can't, as long as that thing is, back
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's sort of an anchor for you, right? If you're anchored on a boat in the ocean to this past thing that was really hurtful to you, and you keep thinking about it, and you keep mulling over it, and you can't let go of it, you can't release that grip, right? Your boat's sails are just not going anywhere. You're stuck. You're literally stuck. And I think a lot of people, when they feel stuck, um for many people, for me, I know for me, when I was feeling stuck, forgiveness was one of those things I really resisted, because I made it mean something. I made it mean like, oh gosh, if I forgive him, then that means that it's okay. And then I'm okay with if he does it to other people, and I'm okay with when he does it to my kids. But I also think it's important to note that two things can be true at the same time, right? You can forgive, let go, or however you want to say that, release, and still not be okay with it. You can say, like, I totally disagree with this behavior. I think it's wrong or harmful, and I would never do it to anyone. And I think people shouldn't do it. I can't control it. Other people do, obviously recognizing that as well. So you can still not be okay with it and still not let it anchor you in that ocean so that you can sail away, right?
Exactly. And that's the self, for me, that's a huge part of the self-love part, because you are, doing this for yourself, deciding, because for me it's always, it feels like this decision, this is a vibration I don't want to, this is energy that I don't want to deal with, and I don't concur with this. Whatever you want to do with it, it's fine for you, but it doesn't have to be my field. That,
Right.
that's how I see it from the energetic side. It's something, and this has to do with self-love to myself, because I'm taking care of my energy field, of my family, of my surroundings. And if someone does something that doesn't go with that, you can do whatever you want, but not inside of my field. You're not allowed in this field anymore.
Well, yeah, because it affects you, like when you've probably experienced this. I know I haven't, probably everyone listening, when you're in the energy of someone who is really toxic or really negative or constantly complaining, it's like, especially for empathic people, like you said at the very beginning, it's highly exhausting. It's draining. It's like, I've used the term emotional vampires, right? Because those people, but here's the other thing too. We allow it or we don't, right? So like what you were saying,
Exactly.
like, I don't want this in my energy really. It's the same thing with, what do you watch on TV? What are you looking at on social media, right? Those kinds of things affect your energy. Like, I choose not to watch the news because it affects my energy. And, I don't, it's not like I want to be blind to what's happening in the world, but I need to focus on me, right? I can't help anybody else if I'm not in a good emotional state in my world. So I choose not to engage in things that I feel like are bringing me down or changing my level of emotion in a way that doesn't feel good to me.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that that's, um, that's also very, very important because one of the things that I've learned from empaths and highly sensitives, we have such a high moral, compass, very, very, very sensitive, but especially towards ourselves too. So, coming from the spiritual field, but I feel that that goes for everybody. We always feel like everything has to be love and light and happiness, and of course, that's our end goal. But to get there, we need to set boundaries to be love and light with us first. And if something doesn't feel right for me, I'm allowed to say no. I don't have to endure it all the time. But we feel like, oh man, and these are, again, examples from my own life. Having a childhood friend from kindergarten. And for me, moving around, that was a very rare thing for me to have. But noticing after 20 years, we just don't vibe anymore. We have different interests, but I'm holding on to this friendship. I'm using my good time to spend with that friend just because I feel like have to, because I mean, we've been friends for so long. No, I'm allowed to say here, it ends here. And this is, just a nicer example. And it's the same thing with people we don't, like, that's why I like to use, the vibe. If I don't vibe with someone, it's okay to say, here is my, I'm allowed to say, I don't like this. And again, also to turn it into ourselves, it's the same thing. We're allowed to get angry. We're with our own feelings, because we tend to, okay, I have a bad feeling, a bad emotion. I don't want it anymore. So I'm not allowed to be angry person, or I don't want to be someone that is always sad. So I'm pushing it away instead of giving it space and allowing it to come out of ourselves.
I love that. So tell me, if someone is interested in learning more about this, learning about, the concept of Ho'oponopono, the philosophy, Hawaiian healing, and how we are literally like clearing out these negative programs and things that are stored in their subconscious, right? I work in the subconscious. It also works in the subconscious. But some people want to incorporate lots of tools and techniques, and I think that's wonderful. And I think we should use whatever really aligns with us, or whatever speaks to, like you said, speaks our language. What is this? And if you're not aware of it, you don't know it exists, then how can you do it? So that's why we're here today. So if somebody's interested in that and they want to start diving into it and get, more information, what would you suggest?
Well, I definitely suggest the books that I suggested you. So one is Joe Vitale, the
Limit.
Zero Limits, and the second one would be Mastering Your Hidden Self from Serge Kahili King.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely two. I have to admit the Serge Kahili King will be, because that one actually goes into, the whole subconscious work as well.
Okay.
Um, I think those two will be a good start.
Okay.
Healing Now
Healing
is
now.
another one from Serge Kahili King that I love because he shows you a way on how to use um, very, very soft ideas to transform things within yourself.
I think you told me about that one. Was it instant healing now or healing
Oh
now?
yeah, instant healing. Sorry, instant healing. I keep saying healing now because the German version is called that way. So
Yeah.
instant healing, Serge Kahili King, instant healing. Those would be like the very, like, if you want to read something, do that first. Of course, whoever wants to dive in a little bit more deeper. At the moment, I only have the one-on-one coaching where I'm there with whoever wants to, do that for 6 months. It's a really, one-on-one. It's 21 weeks plus 3 weeks bonus. Um, so that's like the very intensive, and you get everything, like all everything from the Hawaiians, a couple of things from the shamanism. So I put everything in there because I want whoever wants to work with me to at the end have their own little luggage, or of tools that they can use for everything. And it's sort of more of a trainee program because,
Yeah.
again, I want my clients to afterwards, have the tools to from that be able to walk out. But I am working on two courses specifically on the Hawaiian philosophy to
Okay.
bring that on, but I'm still working on that.
I'll link all those books and everything in the show notes too for people so they can check those out as well. So one question that I always ask all of my guests on this podcast is, can you tell us something that not a lot of people know about you? I always love putting people on the spot like this.
No, actually, I have something, and it's a little bit scary,
Okay.
but it's a hobby.
Okay.
Um, I enjoy all kinds of zombie movies and
Do
series.
you?
So I Walking The Walking Dead, iZombie, like the funny ones, the really splattery ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have
I'm a
you
huge
seen,
fan.
it's not, they're sort of zombies. It's called The Last of Us. They're like,
No, I haven't seen that one yet, but I heard of it. I
it's
have to see
good.
if I can.
It's like,
Yeah.
they're like, fungus. It's like a fungus is sort of like infiltrated and it's like
Hmm.
apocalyptic time. You'd probably really like it. It's really,
Probably, yeah.
I like some of that stuff too, but it a little scares me a little bit. So I have to like determine
Yeah.
which ones I can handle and which ones I can't. So, well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's funny to, ask that question because we're always talking about such serious things. And I want people to know that everybody else is human that are out here too, all these coaches. So I like to answer that question. So thank you so much. Please tell everyone where they can find you if they want to connect with you on social media, your website, all of that stuff, anything that you want to share.
Yeah, so meiwengel.com is my website, and Mei Wengel is also the name that I have on Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn
Okay.
and
So I'm
YouTube.
going to spell it out.
Yes,
MEIWENGEL.com.
.com.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
But I can send you the links if you wanted to
Yeah,
put them.
I think I have that. So I'll put all of that in the show notes for everybody as well. So if they want to find you, they want to connect with you, ask you any questions. I know you're probably like me, your DMs are open and people can just say hello and connect in that way. So is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
No, I think
Okay.
just
We
to
covered a lot.
encourage, I think just to encourage everybody to, I know it's scary to look at ourselves, but that's like the best. It might be scary at the beginning and it might be hard in the beginning, but what you get out of it in the end, it's so beautiful. I mean, I'm so happy who I am today, and this happened because I started looking at myself, and I feel that the more people do that, the more happiness and peace we're going to have on this planet.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with me today in the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast. I hope you found value here with me. If this podcast episode was helpful to you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe and leave me a review. My goal is to help you go from feeling stuck to set free. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and you can check out whentearsleavescars.com for more resources and information to help you with your own emotional abuse recovery. Until next time, here's to believing in